What's going on, everybody? Kevin Cage here with another crypto update. I hope everybody's doing well, and let's dive right into today's video. So first up, we have shared by James over at Bloomberg, highlighting the XRP spot ETFs. So we have the dates down below in the x-axis, and then we have the billions of cumulative flows in the y-axis. So as of March 4th, we can see $1.44 billion. Now, I do want to note when we go to XRP Insights, we can see the updated numbers today. So the XRP price is $1.38 and just over $1.1 billion. And he says the XRP ETFs have actually held up pretty well despite the massive pullback in price. They've taken in a cumulative $1.4 billion since launch. And what's interesting is he shares some of the biggest holders of the spot XRP ETFs. Now, he does point out that we only know a small portion of them because the vast majority do not file 13Fs, but here are the holders as of December 31st. So we can see Goldman Sachs in the number one spot with over 83 million XRP. And to conceptualize what that amount would be if Goldman Sachs is still holding over 83 million XRP today, that's still over 115 million. Next up, we have an image shared by Stern, XRP as the North Stars. We can see during XRP Australia in Sydney, we have Brad Garlinghouse, and right there the panel, XRP as the North Star. And I always think that's interesting considering Bearable Guy 123's old image of the North Star. Alright, next up, before we dive into some XRP information, I wanted to point out the Pi Cycle Top Indicator and take a look at it today. So I assume a lot of people are already familiar with what the Pi Cycle Top Indicator is, but it's very interesting because it's accurately predicted every major Bitcoin cycle top within a matter of weeks. I believe the average is within 3 weeks, it predicts the Bitcoin cycle top. And bear with me because my voice is going in and out, but basically what you're looking at is the 111-day moving average and then the 350-day moving average multiplied by 2. So every time we get that cross of the red line cutting through the green, you could call it a golden cross, but it might not be super obvious. It's really just any type of cross or intersection. But that historically, where I highlighted these yellow circles, shows the top before a pullback, shows the top, pullback, top, bear market, top. We did one more high where there is bearish divergence, but we've yet to see the red cut up through the green this cycle, and it's been years. Now we can actually look at the Pi Cycle Top Indicator on CoinGlass, and we can look at the dates for today, or at least last updated on March 9th. Now remember, this is an indicator, nothing's guaranteed, but I do find this extremely interesting, because it shows Bitcoin's price well below both moving averages. The 111-day moving average is 82K, and the 350-day moving average multiplied by 2 is just under 200,000. So we've yet to have the red come up and cross up through the green. And people can argue, oh, the cycles are broken, or the business cycle is longer now, and World War III is looming, and there's BlackRock liquidity issues I've heard about, clients being unable to withdraw. There's so much going on, but I just wanted to share this. And really, if we are going to see another cross in the future, the question is, when will that be? Because as Bitcoin goes up, these moving averages can go up higher in price. So I think that is easily putting us in the range of 150K to 250K. Alright, now I want to dive into Ripple Prime because there are some huge things going on, and I think a lot of people are overlooking this. They see Ripple Prime, a brokerage, and they're usually thinking this is just another crypto product, but this is real institutional market infrastructure. You can learn more at ripple.com. You can go to Solutions and then click Prime Brokerage. So they are clearing over $3 trillion every single year with over 300 institutional customers, and they are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. They just put out their white paper, and you can actually read that right on Ripple's website right there, and this is for 2026, the blueprint for institutional digital assets trading. I can even do a Control F for XRP, and then we can see XRP on page 12. And let me zoom in just a little bit so we can read that a bit better. And they say right in their 2026 white paper, the XRP blockchain can support early settlements within a digital prime brokerage framework. And they even say in the white paper, this is analogous to CLS, which is continuous link settlements, and that is the core infrastructure today in the global forex market. So this white paper is just highlighting T+1 settlements, separation of execution and custody, and they have centralized credit exposure through a prime broker. And related to the XRPL, enabling on-chain credit lines that fund settlements ahead of the standard net settlement cycle, with funding costs applied explicitly and transparently. And I'm sure you guys also saw this last week on March 5th. We can see that Ripple Prime clients can now trade Coinbase's Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and XRP futures. So this is really interesting, especially for institutional use cases, because today a lot of exchanges are relying on client funds as free capital. And what Ripple Prime is doing is basically allowing institutions to scale safely, make settlements a lot more efficient, and even capital cost being completely transparent. And thinking about it, institutions are not going to be entering the market because of hype or excitement. Maybe they'll make some investments, but they're not going to be entering the market unless there's liquidity, regulation, or at least coming regulation to give them some degree of certainty, risk management, settlement infrastructure, we have tokenization infrastructure, and then even with Ripple Prime, prime brokerage services. So we have Ripple and Ripple Prime in the middle of all of this infrastructure with the prime brokerage and the net settlement and the institutional derivatives like the news we just saw from Coinbase. And most importantly, what we really want to see is the XRP ledger being positioned and set up to be the settlements for liquidity. Now here's where it gets interesting, and don't get me wrong, $3 trillion annually is a lot of money, especially for a crypto company. And that's roughly about $8.2 billion per day. But when you compare it to CLS or continuous link settlements used for the foreign exchange market today, that is peanuts. Compared to over $8 billion per day, we can see that daily settlement volume for CLS settles over $7 trillion per day. We even had higher numbers than $7 trillion per day. We can see over $19 trillion back in 2024. So instead of $3 trillion annually by Ripple Prime, which is great and it's big, don't get me wrong, the potential is significantly bigger, over $1.5 quadrillion. And the biggest point of this whole spiel is that $1.5 quadrillion every year compared to Ripple's $3 trillion is 500 times bigger. So CLS, that they point out in the Ripple Prime white paper, and they say that Ripple Prime is analogous to CLS, handles about 500 times more volume. And that's exactly what Ripple Prime is trying to build for the same type of institutional settlement infrastructure for digital assets. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Alright, next up, in case you guys haven't seen this, put out by Securitize. And this is put out by RWA.xyz and Animoca Research. I always butcher that name. So we have tokenized versus untokenized assets, the $1 trillion opportunity, and they say for untokenized assets, $400 trillion. And we're at $25 billion today, and we can also see that supported on RWA.xyz for $25 billion under distributed asset value. What's not super exciting to me though is, a lot of this is treasury debt. Commodities are getting up there, which is good, but then private credit to me is kind of boring. So I thought that was interesting, and when we go to Securitize, we can see over $4 billion in tokenized assets. And I saw this shared by Mark highlighting NASDAQ partnering with the exchange Kraken in a plan for 24/7 tokenized stock trading. And we can see this article from 2 days ago by CoinDesk, so they're teaming up to let you trade tokenized stocks. And what we need to know today is that Kraken will be distributing one-to-one tokenized versions of public company stocks to customers in Europe and other international markets. It's so annoying how the United States is always cut out of that because of regulations. NASDAQ says that token holders would retain the same governance rights as traditional stockholders, including voting and dividends. So if you guys don't see where this future's headed, I know it sounded crazy, 5 years ago to say that everything will be tokenized, but it will be. It might take a while, but it's happening. And this initiative builds on NASDAQ's proposal to the SEC to allow tokenized versions of listed stocks and ETFs to trade alongside traditional shares. So this is a very gradual transformation, and keep in mind the global equities market is still worth over $100 trillion. As you scroll up, we can see companies well over 136, we have ETFs at 13 trillion, crypto is down to 2.4 trillion, and then gold is over 35 trillion, and silver is just under 5. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash the like button and let me know your thoughts down below. You can find all links to my crypto resources, including tools for charting, trading bots, wallets, portfolio trackers, and exclusive discounts right in my link tree in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.